Hello, buddy. Welcome back, Just Lights. This is going to be the next project. This is an old Eagle Signal four-way flasher right here. This is one of the older styles where it actually has the threaded rods that holds the top and bottom section to the center section right there. I probably have had this thing since I would say 1992, somewhere in that ballpark. If y'all came across the video of the WS Darley right here that I posted and talked about how I got that out of a junkyard in Georgia on a family vacation, well, I got this one right here out of that same junkyard on the next family vacation. We went back there and they didn't have no more of the Darleys, but they did have this one right here. So I was able to get a hold of this one. Now the biggest downfall is it is missing a couple lenses. I only have two. Right now I have the one amber, one red right here. This one right here you can see is missing, plus the visor. This one right here just had a random green one that I stuck in. Needs a visor. Went on eBay, came across a couple lenses, some Eagle lenses right here. Have the nice little Eagle embossing in it. Only downside is those are plastic, and the two that I have in there are glass right now. But for a display and stuff like that, it's not going to be a big deal. The game plan for this particular video right here is it's going to be a full disassembly. I'm going to try to use some paint stripper, get as much of that old paint off as I can, sandblast it. I got to build a couple of visors. So I'm going to get some thin aluminum, make templates, bend them, and make myself two new visors. Get this thing fully painted up. I got myself a flasher to make it flash and do its thing. So let's go ahead and get into it and see how this one turns out. The Eagle Signal Corporation is an American company based out of Pfluger, Texas. Back in 1931, Eagle got into the traffic division by manufacturing four-way traffic lights and single-head style traffic lights that they would call the Eagle Flux. Both the four-way and the single-head style traffic lights were rodded style traffic lights where they would actually have sections that were held together by rods. The single-head style traffic light was what they called the Art Deco style, where they had a top and bottom cap that had a fin-like design on them. These ran from 1931 to the mid-50s. Alright, so I took the main body off because I wanted to be able to get to these much easier. Because you see they're pretty rusted in there pretty good, and I really don't think they're going to come out. So I'm going to give them a shot. If they don't come off, I'm just going to cut them off and then just replace the nut. I'm not even going to attempt to get them out of here because you can see how rusted they are inside there. And the last thing I want to do is snap it off inside there. I mean, if I were to snap this off, I mean, I could probably, get it out of the elbow or something like that and replace just that threaded piece if it comes down to it. But I won't be able to replace it inside here and keep everything matching properly. So let me see if I can get these loose, and then if not, I'm cutting them off. Back in the mid-50s is when they switched to this design right here that they called the rodded flatback. This particular design right here was a transition design that only ran for a few years before they started manufacturing the one solid piece in the 1960s. Wow, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm actually pretty shocked. I really didn't think those things were going to come off considering how badly rusted they are. The threads aren't messed up or nothing, so good sandblasting, good cleaning. These things are going to work out just fine. So since those came up, I am half tempted to just go ahead and give one of these a shot, see what happens, and go from there. But if it feels like it's not going to go, I'll just sandblast this whole thing and paint it as it is, and just leave it alone. So let me try just to see what happens and go from there. All right, so here we go. I got the entire thing all tore apart. Now that one top section right there, I kind of gave up on trying to take that apart because I know that if I force it and that snaps off inside there, I'm going to really regret it. So I'm just going to sandblast and clean it as is. It'll be perfectly fine once it's all done. It'll still look good. I did snap two of the bolts that hold the top and bottom plate on. These ones right here. So I'm gonna add some threads to it, just so I can keep the original bolts because they have the square head and stuff like that on there. Just so I can keep a lot of the original bolts to it. Now this is actually one of the only lights in my collection that I have not really ever taken apart, repainted, or anything like that. So the paint that you see on here is actually the original paint when I got it back in '92. So hopefully a really good paint stripper will take this stuff off. So this way I can get down to the metal and do some sandblasting and stuff like that. But I also got to make a couple little lenses. I want to see if I can get some mirror paint so I can repaint these right here. Now these are kind of cool because these are actually glass right here. So they're very, glass. They're very fragile, but you can see right through it essentially.
So I want to get some paint and see if I can kind of touch those up, make those look a little bit better than that right there. Other than that, let's go ahead and get these outside, get some paint stripper, and see what happens.
Some of the distinct key features of an early Eagle traffic signal is the refractor or reflector on the interior was actually made of glass instead of a stamped aluminum, and the lenses on the front would have a cross flag design that would say stop go on them. And the Eagle logo on the back of the housing was generally a very small logo. All right, so before I start taking the doors out and pressure wash, I want to kind of show you guys this real quick. See that little dent right there? At first, I thought maybe it was maybe a BB gun, maybe a pellet gun, someone shot at it. I'm thinking it's more of probably like maybe like a 22 maybe, because you see where it's definitely indented pretty good. You also see it actually bent the door, and it also caused a crack in the casting right there, you know, from the stress from it being hit. So I'm going to assume that was probably maybe like a 22 shot. I gotta admit, whoever shot at it just missed the globe, but also just made it onto the light itself. But that's probably why this one didn't have a lens in there to begin with, because just the sheer impact probably broke the lens originally, but they didn't actually hit the lens, which is kind of, you know, kind of weird. But I thought I'd show you guys that before I actually start pressure washing this. Now, the light I'm working on, like I said, was classified as the rotted flatback. What that meant was it had the two rods that held the top and bottom plate on, and the backside of the light was kind of a flat design. This ran from the mid-50s, around 1956, to about 1962. Around 1962, they switched from the three-piece design to a one-piece design, where it was a one-piece casting. When they switched to the one-piece design, they kept the overall shape, so it still had the same flat back design. Some of the biggest differences is they removed the glass reflector on the interior of the light, and the logo on the back of the casting got larger.
All right, and with the power of editing, everything's all clean, ready to go. And I didn't get to the visors just yet because one, I ran out of paint stripper, two, my pressure washer died on me as I was getting to the last little bit here. So I got to get some more paint stripper, and then I'll do what I can to get those the best I can. I still got the other two to make, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I'm going to take all these pieces out, put them on a table so I can start spraying some primer on them. Let that dry really good, and then I'll get ready to start painting the yellow on them, and we'll be able to start putting this thing back together shortly.
Now, this was one of the lights that I never really did anything with as far as a restoration, because I kind of wanted to leave this one all original from what it was with the patina and everything like that. But since I needed to do visors and stuff like that, there's going to be no way for me to paint them and make everything match properly. I just felt I'll just go ahead and take everything completely apart, sand, paint it, and make it look nice and new again.
All right, so everything's all primered up. I'm going to let these sit here till they're dry to the touch to where I can move them. I'll bring them in the shop. I'll let them sit for a couple days, make sure that primer is nice and dry, give it a light sanding, and I'll get the yellow put on them. Okay, so while that primer is drying, I'm going to go ahead and work on making these other two visors real fast. Now, I've used this in the past, and it works really good. It's just a galvanized AC ductwork, 8-inch. I like it because it's already in a nice rounded shape, so I don't have to try to take a bunch of time to bend something and make it look nice and perfectly round and stuff like that. Pretty much all I'll do is I'll just take the ear, bend these ears flat so I can trace around them, put it around this right here, use a couple clamps to lock it in tight so I can make sure I get the circumference I need to, trace it with a Sharpie, cut it out, instant visor and stuff like that. And I've used this in the past before, and I've never had issues with it, especially being a galvanized. It's not going to rust or anything like that anyways. And then once the paint and everything like that's on it, you don't really know the difference. So I'm going to get started on that next.
I did go on eBay to try to see if I could find some visors, but I really wasn't able to find much in the way of visors for an Eagle signal, and the couple I did find were for a 12-inch model and not the 8-inch model. So this is a method I've done in the past, when I had to make visors. I just use one of the originals to trace it out. Once I get it traced out, I just cut it and all that kind of stuff. I'll bend the ears, drill the holes in them like I need to. Once they're painted, for the most part, you don't really notice the difference unless you're up close and notice the thickness differences between the aluminum one to this thin galvanized, that's all.
All right, so I want to show how I plan on fixing these two bolts. Essentially, here's one of them that isn't broken yet. I took these two bolts right here, cut the heads off of it. I'm lining them up with the end of the longer one, marking right here. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right here. I'm going to round those off a little bit, kind of bevel them. And I'm going to clamp them into this piece of L angle right here that I put this notch in there so I can get all the way around the bolt. I'm going to go ahead and weld it all the way around, let it cool off in there so it stays straight, and I'll smooth it out, and then I'll have two bolts the right length again. All right, so I got the first one clamped into the L angle right here, so that's what's going to keep it nice and straight for me, so I ain't got to worry about it moving or anything like that. You see where I did the bevel on the both pieces right here? What that's going to do is as I fill that with weld right there, what that's going to do is when I sand this down smooth, so it go back to the top plate and everything without no problems, I'll still have a good solid connection between the two pieces. I ain't got to worry about breaking when I tighten it up. So let's go ahead and get them welded. All right, so I got those two done. You see I got them lined up here on the ends. See, now I got all the correct length bars again. You see it's ground down, so it should go through that top plate with no issues. So, there we go. All right, so I got the insides of them all painted yesterday. Everything's all nice and dry. So I'm going to go ahead and start assembling the main bodies, and then take everything outside and start painting everything. And once it's all dry, then I can start the full reassembly process. All right, so before I start putting these together, I want to show you guys something that's kind of unique about these housings right here, just in case you're kind of new to the traffic light world and stuff like that, and you're kind of wondering why it comes apart in multiple pieces and stuff like that. The design that was behind these right here is to be able to be stackable, essentially. So these housings right here could be ran as a standalone, like you see like in this particular right here, double stack for like say a walk don't walk sign, or a triple or a quad, depending on what the needs were for that particular intersection. The housing itself is directional. There is a top and a bottom to the housing portion itself. The actual top and bottom pieces are not. They're the same no matter what. It just bases on how it's going to sit on this housing. So your top side has just a simple little lip right here that's towards the far inside of the housing. And what that did is that allowed the bottom of the next one that has the lip right here that would sit over top of it, creating your water runoff, almost like a shingle effect so the water can't get into the light. So say they needed to make a double for like a walk, don't walk sign, they would just take it, put it right on top like that right there. They put their top and bottom pieces on, run a longer rod through it than obviously what I have, and now you have a double. Now if they wanted a triple, same thing, they just put another one on top, put your top and bottom pieces on, run a longer piece of thread rod through there, and now you have a triple. And they actually ran this particular style pretty much from the 1930s all the way to the 1960s. The 1960s when they switched to the one-piece casting, where they essentially did away with the rod and the top and bottom pieces, and that's what a lot of what you see nowadays, which is just one piece, head essentially. But these are really cool. The fact that they were able to be taken apart and designed to where they could do a stackable light system or run it single if they needed to. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting all these pieces together, and we're going to start putting some paint on these.
All right, so here's where you can see where that threaded rod really comes into play. So once I put that top and bottom piece on, that threaded rod actually goes through the casting, through the body, and on the bottom side there'll be a nut and a washer. Once you get all that tightened up, there you go, there's the light head.
Now what I'm using to paint this is this Rust-Oleum Implement Caterpillar yellow paint that I got from Tractor Supply. I thin it down with a little mineral spirits, and I'm shooting it through one of these cheap Harbor Freight automotive sprayers. But if you're uncomfortable with doing the mixing and thinning out of paints, you could also get this in an aerosol can as well. All right, so everything's all painted, laying on the table. I'm gonna go ahead and let all this stuff just dry overnight. I still got to do the black on the backside of the visors, which I'll do later on. Now in the reflectors, I tried to find the best kind of paint that I could find. It didn't turn out as good as I wanted it to, but it's going to be on the inside. You're not really going to see it anyways, and the light will still reflect off that without too much of a problem. All right, so as you can see, I do got a couple broken ones right here. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and put them back in the light. I'll probably look on eBay and try to see if I can find some nice ones down the road, for maybe like a future project, updating it a little bit or something like that. But for now, I just got to let this stuff dry, and we'll get back on it later. All right, so for the meantime, while that yellow paint's drying, I'm going to go ahead and take the reflector assemblies and start reassembling those so they'll be ready to go when I start putting the light back together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start putting the visors on the doors right now because I do got to paint that black portion still, and I'm essentially show you how I do that and why I put the visors on to do it. All right, I thought I'd show this part real fast to kind of show how I paint the inside of my visors right here. Usually what I do is I'll put a little bit of tape on my bottom here just to make sure I'm getting overspray down there. And what I do is I paint it from the inside. And I don't worry about getting black paint on right here because that's where my gasket's going to be for my my globe or my lens and such. So I just hold it this way and I go from the back side like this. What that does, that helps keep it to where I'm spraying this way, so you get nothing on the outside. There you go. That's all I do to paint the inside of my visors black, and it helps me keep from getting any on the outside. And I just peel that off, you're good to go. All right, so now we're on the home stretch. I'm going to go ahead and start putting everything back together. So I'm going to start off by putting the light heads onto the upper bracket. Now, this light appears to have never been taken apart before because it actually still has the lead gasket slash spacer for the top side there. Now I'm going to go ahead and start putting the bottom bracket on so I can get all that stuff lined up and get my drill so I can snug all the screws up. All right, so the next step is to go ahead and start putting the reflectors in. Now these have a little stainless steel rod that you have to move up and down to lock these things in position. So that's what I'm in the process of doing. And I'm also hooking up all my wiring while I'm doing this at the same time. So this way I don't have to keep opening and closing each one of these, except for just the one that's going to have the flasher in it. Now the flasher that I'm using on this is something I picked up off of eBay. I'll show you guys the flasher in just a second. Has a couple little dials on there, and at the moment I'm actually turning it the wrong direction. That's why it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. But as soon as I start turning it the right way, you'll notice a big difference in the flash pattern. Okay, as you can see, once I pretty much got those dials in the right spot, I got the flash pattern looking pretty good. That's exactly what you want. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that flasher that I was talking about. I have it mounted inside here to make it easy to get to. Now, these flashes right here, I just picked these up online. You can get them in two different ways. One is a single flash, and one is an alternating flash. And you see these little screws right here. Those are the ones I was turning. Those are the ones that you use to dial in, your flash pattern, how fast you want it to go. And you can actually dial it to the point that you can actually make one light flash faster than the other to where they're not consistent. Where right now I have them both flashing about the same distance from apart. Now, the way I did the wiring on this light right here is that my main power coming in from the top right here, it's ran to the controller. And then I just made jumper wires. So I have the wire going from the controller to this light and then jump straight across to that light, and then vice versa from this light to that light right there. I did it that way so I didn't have a big cluster of wires in that little cubby hole right there. It made it a lot easier, a lot less wires and stuff like that. So the next step now is to go ahead and get the doors installed and finish this light up. The gasket that came with these two lenses right here was way too thick, so I had to come up with another alternative. So I took this clear tubing right here, split it down the center, wrapped it around the lens, and when I went to put it in the housing, to my surprise, it actually fits really good. Actually, this was a really good alternative considering I didn't have to write gasket for it. All right, so the final touch is put these doors on here and get everything closed up. Now what I did is all the hardware that was on these, I wire wheeled everything. So this way I got rid of all the excess yellow paint on the stuff that I didn't want paint on. So this way when you look at this thing from the outside, it has a lot of new hardware on it, as far as screws and wing nuts and stuff like that. Just makes the end result look so much nicer. Okay, so here we are. It's all put together, flashing, doing its thing. I'm gonna do a quick 360 around it real quick. Okay, so the one thing I was talking about with the hardware and things like that, what is I went to Ace Hardware and picked up a whole bunch of new screws for all the visors, so they have all nice new screws in it. All the retaining clips that hold, like, say, this door from lifting off, I cleaned all those up. The little wing nut assembly piece that keeps the door shut, I wire wheeled all that stuff to get rid of all the excess yellow paint from the previous painting that was on it and stuff like that. New wing nuts, new washers, cleaned up the retaining clips and stuff like that. So this way, when you look at the light, from the outside, everything's all new, fresh material, all that kind of stuff. I use a lot of the original screws and stuff like that on the interior where you really don't see it. But overall, I mean, everything came out pretty good. The paint laid really nice. And now the next step is to figure out exactly where in the shop I'm going to hang it up so I can start collecting dust again. I hope y'all enjoyed seeing the transformation of this light from what it was to what it is now. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching.